Okay, so we had this quiz, some simple equations to solve here at the beginning. Now we're going to look at equations with letters instead of numbers, and they're solved in the same way. Okay? Solved in exactly the same way if you use the steps. Now there are two ways people will write this out. This is the way I kind of prefer, but I don't mind seeing this. Okay? This is one. And of course, r minus r is 0, so you get x equals q minus r. Just the same as this was x plus 5 equals 9. You subtract 5 from both sides. You wouldn't say, well, I know that to add something to 5 to get 9, that something has to be 4. I mean, I'm glad you know that. That's important. Okay? That's not how you learn to solve equations, because it's not going to work when you get into symbols. Okay? And okay, what if you have px equals s? What are you going to do? Well, hopefully you wrote down this. And then hopefully, as I've done, there are a few dots there to remind yourself to be careful if you're tempted to cancel. Okay? But since you can factor out that p over p, this is p over p times x over 1. X over 1 is just x, p over p is just 1. You get x. So this is what you get, right? And if you have, what if you have x, pushing it a little bit, x over a plus b equals c. Write that down and see what you're going to do. Give you a minute to think about it. Well, what you should immediately do is understand that if you multiply both sides by the denominator, then you have this. In other words, x times a plus b is your numerator. And if you want, that could be a plus b over 1. And don't be tempted to do a plus b over a plus b like you would if you were getting a common denominator. That's not what you're doing when you have an equation. You're trying to clear out your denominator. Close your parentheses like I don't. Okay? So, if you write it like this, then you have this. And that equals using the distributive law, C times A is AC or CA. Be all right if you wrote CA. Usually keep them alphabetical. Plus C times B is BC. Okay? And then A plus B in the numerator as a factor, A plus B in the denominator as a factor, allows you to do the thing I talked about earlier. And now we can say x equals AC plus BC. So you need to be using the steps with numbers so you can check yourself in order to understand the steps and see how they apply when you've got symbols. Okay? So it's kind of a big deal. Now, one of the sections you have due, and I don't remember if it's due Wednesday or Thursday, but it was going to be due in a couple of days, or 3 at the most, is the section on formulas. I kind of think that one's due. I think that one's 4.3. I think it's due along with 4.2, which is just solving equations that are a little more complicated than the ones I gave you in 4.1. Okay? But if you understand all this, then you're in pretty good shape for both of these sections. Okay? So let's go on to a couple other problems before we come back into the solving equations and formulas.